front. Are you all right at the back? Can you hear us okay? There's 3 seats there if anyone wants to come up front. No, you're all right? Okay. Get picked on if you're
really comfortable back there. We've got 3 people still from our school, right?
Have you? Okay, great. Make them come at the front. It's always
You're late. That's right.
Can we just all join in together with the whakatauki for today? Ko te mano e kai ana e te miro, nona te ngahere. Ko te mano e kai ana e te maturanga, nona te ao. Should all know that one. Just a reminder that it's okay to feel like you're in the pit. And that you feel a little bit confused or concerned, or you don't know where you're supposed to be going. This is a lengthy process, and so just feel comfortable that you are feeling not comfortable, if you know what I mean. We're just looking at our workshop 2 overview, part 2 overview there for you for today, what we're going to cover. So we're looking at assessment, data collection. We're going to teach you a lesson plan. You're going to be the kids, which will be fun. And we're going to show you how to teach heartwords. We're going to look at something called orthographic mapping, what the tiered system of intervention is, reporting, and then goal setting. I think we're going to have a break about 11 for morning tea, is that all right? And we will have a stop for a morning tea break and get some fresh air and finish at 1. Is that what you all understood? Great. Okay, homework. Everyone looks down. Oh no. It's totally fine if you haven't had a chance to do this. We understand there's been lots going on with people being away and things like that. But maybe if you just take a moment to talk to the person next to you about if you've had a go at the sound pack, how it went, if you did have a go at doing a PA assessment, or if you got onto the shared drive okay, or still haven't managed to get on there. So just have a go, have a chat to the person next to you about if you've done anything, what you've done, and how you found it. I'll give you 3-4 minutes.
Yes, a blend. And there's a shared drive. What's it called? So you would have got an email.
Yeah.
Would have been from
We've been on it, we're just trying to look where it is.
Oh, okay. So if you go to the drive, you go there, receive the share.
My research.
Structured literacy PD. Okay, if we could just wrap that conversation up. Oh, you're very good. Very well behaved. It's Joe that I have to wrangle back in.
Yeah.
One of those hooks, like, hook her back in.
They do.
Did anyone have a go at the PA assessment? How'd you find it? Is that you?
Oh God, I just.
Oh, sorry, it's over here. Sorry. How did you go with the PA assessment?
Pretty good. Look at Rose. Oh.
Sorry. Easy enough to understand?
Easy enough to follow and
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do it on some kids that you were sort of wondering about what was going on for them?
Yeah,
or?
Rose already started that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying to Joe that the kids that were more further along in the strokes of literacy, they blended consonants together, like with nest, instead of going n-s, t, they went n-s, t.
Right.
Blended those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Because they've been obviously taught
Yeah.
to do them as a
Yeah.
blend. Yeah. When we know that we do them as consonant clusters now and do them as separate sounds, and we'll teach you about that in our next workshop, how we do that. Anybody else have a go? Are there any surprises from it? Any kids struggling and you gave them the PA assessment and saw some real gaps in there?
We had done it at the start of the year, and we were brand new to the journey, not a lot of background knowledge, but we
Yep.
jumped into it, and we went back and did it, retested them, and the progress they've made in like 8 weeks is blowing us out of the water.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So,
And what have you been using to teach it? Higgity or? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So the. Yeah. Okay. So the phonological awareness bit of it. Yeah. Anybody else?
So excited.
So, yeah.
Oh, it's great when you
It
see
brings me
the light bulbs.
That is so cool. And in such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
You're getting
and-
such a gain. It's very, very, very good.
And the children are, and their confidence has grown, and they're using the techniques
Yeah.
that we're using, they're using at their best when they're doing independent writing and things. You see them and sounding it out and writing.
Brilliant.
It. So,
Cracks
yeah.
cracks you out, doesn't it? Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah, love it, yeah.
And has anyone started doing some phonological awareness teaching that they hadn't been doing before?
So using like David
Go.
Kilpatrick or?
Have you had a go at the Higgidy stuff? Your little ones? No? Next time. Okay, alright, we're going to have a go at doing our sound pack together. Just as a little bit of a review. Remember our hand actions.
Mind if
So
I
we've
put
got, Joe's going to model them for you. If we could all join in, it'd be great. So your apple's up. Brilliant.
Okay, we'll do A, apple, A. O, olive, O. E, Eddie, E. U, upper, and I, itchy, I. Well done.
I mean, they
nice.
may seem quite babyish, these little hand actions, but they are a really good hook for kids, and the vowels are tricky. So we do really suggest that you do teach your kids these. And then if they are struggling with the vowel sound, you can just do the hand action as a little prompt for the kids, and so it's a nice little hook.
And I think just remember to keep the actions that we've given you because there's a reason for them. Remember they're really pure sounds. So if it's O, olive, if you're going to O and then going L, you're making that real clear sound. If you do orange or orangutan, you're moving and there's co-articulation happening there with the letter beside it. So this is the reason why we're using these particular words. Yeah.
I just turn that down, otherwise we'll be cooking everyone. Is it warm? Everyone okay? Yeah. All right, we're going to move into assessment now. You all right? Can you see the screen all right? Yeah. Sort of, I need to get close as I can get my voice down there. So we're looking at why do we assess, what do we assess, what assessments are available, how do you choose an assessment, when you do them, and how we collect, upload and analyse our data. Just a little reminder about this lovely visual for you, the Scarborough's rope. We won't go through it in too much detail, but just remember you've got word recognition, and that's your red component, and then you've got your language comprehension, and those two are multiplied, so you need both of them to get to that skilled reading. So we're assessing to find a place to start in the scope and sequence, which we talked about last time, to look at any gaps that we've got in knowledge, any gaps that, for an older, you might have a year 2 child, and you might need to assess them to look at any gaps that you can go back and backfill, and parts that you need to teach. And to identify specific skills that are needed to be developed, e.g. fluency.
Is it recording? Yeah, it should be.
Alright, so you'll see here on your page, what do I assess?
Just go.
So you assess your phonological awareness, which we talked about last time, and you can find those assessments on the shared drive. You assess your phoneme-grapheme relationship, phoneme being sound, grapheme being letter. So the sound to letter relationship, you use SoundPack, and then we go into our single word reading and pseudo words. Pseudo words are nonsense words, made up words. I'm going to show you why we use those soon. We assess spelling, we assess a record of reading, and we assess heart words. So as I said, see session 1. We've got all that information about how we assess phonological awareness in the shared drive. And then this is using this assessment here, the Little Learners Assessment of Reading Skills, or the LARS. This is a free download and it's fantastic. We highly recommend that when you go away from here today, you download one of these. Is anybody using one or has got one? Yeah. It's really great, isn't it? It's nice and easy to use. And you'll need to have a good read through of it. It's very self-explanatory, but it's really good to have a good read through of how you administer it and how you mark it. That's really clear information in here. So it starts with a grapheme phoneme knowledge. So you'll see here you've got the stage 1 sounds are in the yellow, and then stage 2, 3, 4, 4 plus 5 and 6. So this will tell you if a child can map print to speech and vice versa. It will identify any letter knowledge gaps that they may have. It'll help identify if a child's making correct sound, any sort of speech articulation issues that you might need to have a little practice with. You know, those little sound cards that we looked at last time with the mouth shapes. Or is this child really struggling and they may need a referral to a speech language therapist. It might pick up any B, D, P, Q reversals, which are quite common. The one thing that we do say to be careful with though is the font. It's a Victorian font, the Little Learners is Australian, and they use a sort of a fancy F with a curl at the bottom, so you might like to just twink that out. Do we have twink still?
Yeah. I have used
Sorry, my age.
Yeah.
Then we move into single word reading. Again, you can see the in their stages. So here, if a child said the word was tip and they said pit, what do you think they might be doing there? So we're analysing the errors here. What do you think they might be doing?
Reading from right to left.
Hearing the last thing.
Yeah, probably. Probably more likely they're hearing the last sound and then giving you that, I think.
And just some like blending and segmenting issues basically. Yeah, like you said, they're hearing that last sound and then they're putting that first and blending it. So that's more of a blending, segmenting thing going on there. Yeah.
What about if they said the word was cap and they said cab?
Confusion.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's really easy because really common because the BD, you know, it's a stick with a circle basically, and they're all the same, but it's just a matter of which way you put them up. Have you seen that little graphic with the chair? So it's a chair, a chair, a chair, a chair, you know. So yeah, it's identifying that in there. So yeah, it's really good to look at the mistakes they're making and analysing what's going on. Why are they making those mistakes? What could be the cause of that? And then we move into pseudo words. So pseudo words are nonsense words that are designed to reflect the rules of conventional spelling. So it indicates whether students can apply their knowledge of phonics to decode unfamiliar words and read independently. And you'll see here we've got pseudo words for stage 4, 5 and 6. And you'll see, we've got a different script there. Anyway, and you'll see that some children, when they hit probably around year 3, 4, sometimes it can all come crashing down because they've been relying on memory to get them so far. And as words become more complex, they struggle to decode them, to really look at what's happening in those words. So pseudo words is a good technique or assessment tool to use for those kids who may have a really good strong visual memory, but they're needing to really decode the words and look at what's happening. Anything else you want to add on to pseudo words?
Just going to say at our office where we have one-to-one intervention, most of the children that come to us are around about in their year 3, 4, 5. And what's happened is they've looked like they're doing really well because they have relied on their memory, and then when the text gets more sophisticated, the pictures get removed, they can't use those other strategies that they've been using, and they can't apply what they know to the words. So their self-esteem drops, and so this is just to make sure that if a child looks like they're reading really well, sometimes you need to go a little bit deeper, and don't let it fool you. Yeah.
That's why we always say spelling is telling, because sometimes they can read because they've taught themselves to read using picture cues and using the meaning, but their spelling is atrocious, and that's a really good indicator that they are guessing. That's just exactly what we've said there, but in a fancy quote. Okay, so looking at how do we assess spelling, and we've got there a picture of a sample of the year 3 word check in the code, and you'll see it gives you the word to give them to spell. It's like a spelling test. Then it's the focus, so what the rule is or spelling pattern that is using this word. And then it has got some heart words at the end there for year 3. So if you are teaching year 3, you might go back and start with a year 1 or 2 word check. Again, being mindful of those kids that you're giving it to. If you think that that's going to be way too hard, you wouldn't give it to a child who's is going to get 1 out of 100, because that's just going to destroy them. Fairly self-explanatory, and so that's we're now looking at the code. So we've got the Little Learners Assessment and the word checks at the back of the code.
So that's from the code.
Yeah, that's.
But you've also got, as part of the Little Learners Scope and Sequence, there's also a spelling assessment that you can do as well. Unfortunately, and I don't know why, because the reading one's free, but the spelling one you have to pay for.
Yeah, they suck you on that.
Yeah, they suck
This,
you.
this one here, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can either use that or the code word checks. How much is it about?
Oh gosh, that'd be stretching.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? That one's free, but that one's.
Yeah. Very odd.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So again, we are talking about looking at those spelling errors. We're not looking at the whole word that they just got wrong. We're really looking at it and unpicking what went wrong for them. What did they get wrong? So we're looking at, are their sounds represented accurately? Do we need to go back and teach them some of their consonants or their vowel sounds that they're still not getting right? Or is it that the words are spelled that are not spelled according to the rules? So is there a gap in their knowledge there that we need to go back and backfill? And that by giving them those word checks, you can then see where those gaps are, what those spelling patterns are that you need to teach them. Or is it something where we're starting to look at the morphology, which is the prefixes, the roots and suffixes? Are they spelled correctly? Do they know about those? So again, that's probably a little bit further on in your scope and sequence, but you can start to see here that we're analysing what it is that they're doing with these spelling errors. not just saying wrong, eh. And there's some examples there of some common spelling errors. So pat to put, what's happening there? Is that? Yep, so the middle vowel sound, yep. Oops, sorry. Back, they spelled it B-A-K, so they're hearing that sound k at the end of the word back, but they don't know the long spelling right after short vowel rule, and they're spelling it with a K, so we know we need to teach them that rule. Dream, and they spell it with E-E. That is, they've got the wrong spelling of the long E sound, and it's a pretty good attempt. We'd be pretty pleased if they did that, but we need to teach them that's the other way.
Depending on how many times they've seen it too and how many times they've practiced it, right, then you'd be going, well, hang on, you should know this now, but yes. Yeah.
So the word jumped, and they're writing jumped. It's quite a common one. So they don't know the three sounds of ED, and they're hearing T, which is correct at the end of the word, but they don't know if you hear the T sound at the end of the word, it's ED, spelled ED, suffix ED, and we're going to teach you all about these rules. If you're feeling like I'm talking like a different language, we're going to teach you all these rules in the workshop too. Alright, so record of reading, not to be confused with a running record, because you need to think running records, it's not giving us the information we need to use for a structured literacy approach. It's giving us the MSV cues, so we don't use those anymore, which is a bit hard for some people because they're like, well, I hold on to this really dearly, it's what I know how to do. I know how to assess reading using running records. It's probably one of the first things you do when you come out of Teachers College. Set your reading program up, know how to take a running record. So now we're telling you, actually, yeah, we need to change that. But this is fairly similar. It's quite a nice, it does feel quite similar. And it's called a record of reading, and it's in the back of this here. And there's an example of one, Sam and the Rabbit. So it's giving you an overview of their reading skills and reading behaviour. It looks at their decoding ability of words, and looks at some heart words, what they're doing. Are you needing to prompt them to sound it out? So, but we're not using MSV for recording. Instead, we're looking at that decoding and whether they're doing it automatically and accurately. So you can see here how many words they got correct automatically with some decoding, and then that gives you your accuracy rate out of 63. Target level you're wanting to get to is 57. Is that reached, yes or no? How many heart words out of 13 did they get correct? And what sort of behaviours are they doing when they're reading? Are they tracking their words with the finger, which is totally fine? Are they decoding without prompting? Are they rereading for meaning? Are they reading fluently? And you've just got a 1, 2 or 3 tick there. We have some comprehension questions at the bottom, 2 comprehension questions. So we're checking that they're understanding what they're reading, and we're writing in here the answers to that. So you can see it's quite similar, but just getting different information. Okay. Any questions on that?
Has anybody used one? Do you like them? Yeah. The kids get a bit freaked out to start with when they see a passage because they're used to you giving them a book. So usually they're just a passage, and you have to explain to them it's still just a story. But so they do well with them. Yeah.
And it's probably a conversation you need to have as a school as well about what information are we going to gather now. Are we still doing our 6-year nets? When are we assessing our kids? All those sorts of things. So there's some big conversations that need to happen at a school-wide level as well. And this is our heart words, and we're looking whether they know them and they can read them automatically and they're accurate. This is for our older struggling kids, so you can see there they've got the spelling words that they give them, what the spelling pattern or the rule is, and then it tells you where to start, and that's for the UK phonic books, scope and sequence. So if you are using those books for your older struggling readers, this is a good little assessment tool. I'm just showing you a variety of a few. All right. So how do you choose an assessment? Well, we would say use the assessment that matches the scope and sequence that you are using in your school. And it would be great if everybody was doing the same one, because then you were all got the same common language and you're all reporting on the same information, and it's that consistency of approach. So what we recommend, and we have looked at a few, we recommend that you use you probably gathered this by now, but the Little Learners, which is free, and we also then recommend using Liz Kane from year 3 up, using the code, the word checks in the back of that. This is just an overview of, and just ignore the MSL, that was the assessment, that's the course that we did. So we called Structured Literacy at Redcliffe, we called it MSL. I think it's still called MSL, isn't it? Because that's what we...
Which is just multi-sensory structured language, so same thing.
And you'll see here that we looked at when we were going to report, at what point across the school year. Do you want to talk about that, Jo?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. So we split it up into our year groups, and we just said so in week 5, term 1, year 1s, we didn't do any assessment. We have now changed that. Actually, we're now doing a PA assessment because we want to do it really, really early and get those children and check them. So we would do that now. So
It's about 3 weeks after school.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Once they've been 3 weeks at school, PA assessment. Yep.
So then this week 4, term 4, term 2 for year 0, the assessment will be used to move sliders. So we're just saying, what is our assessment going to be doing? So in the first term, the assessment will be used to set goals and inform parents. Then we've got assessment sliders, we moved on to 0. And again in week term 3, the assessment will be used to inform parents. And we just went through and we worked out when we were going to do our particular assessments. Because when you start to do assessments through a structured literacy lens, there is quite a bit of assessment to do. Because it's new and because there is a bit to do, we had to work out how we're going to do this so that it's manageable. So we worked out in each year group how often we would do a PA assessment, how often we would do a spelling assessment, reading. So that's going to be a little bit school dependent on how you report and what your assessment. We would just wanted to show you how we came to it, but it will look different for each school.
I just wonder, have you got an example of your slider that you used for the reading? You moved to sliders.
I think we do a bit further on under reporting. Yep.
Yes, yep, we could show you that. Yep.
So down the bottom of that small writing, which probably is hard to read, it's got PA assessment. If a year 1, 0-1 student has mastered Screener 1, you then assess them on Screener 2. Sound pack assessment, just need to update assessment during a literacy session. So you wouldn't check all of them that they already know, you just check the ones they don't know. So once you've done it once, you don't need to go back and do the whole thing again. Just do the ones that that they don't know, just to do a check. Single word reading, just need to update assessment during a literacy session, same thing. You wouldn't go back and test them on the ones that they've already got. You just do the ones that from there on. That makes sense. And then we've got running records probe after student has mastered level 7.4. That we are looking at, I think they're still using that there. We're probably looking at the DIBELS assessment and getting our head around how we use that for a spelt DIBELS, which is a whole raft of assessment tools, if you are looking for some others as well. Okay. That's assessment in a nutshell. So it's just a bit of an overview for you. It's probably good to have a conversation as a school. What are we going to use? Where are we going to start?
Give me a trick!
Yeah, so what we would suggest you do is print this off and have a read of it and have a go with a couple of students. That would be a really good starting point for you. Okay? And remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint, so just hang in there.
Yeah, there's a lot to take on, and it looks like a lot initially, and again, it's new, remember, so it will take a bit of getting used to. When we introduced it at Redcliffe, it was definitely a big thing for the staff because it's new, and it's also getting your head around assessing in a completely different way, in a new way as well. So it was a bit of like working out, well, what assessments now are not serving us, and what ones do we need to take away and replace, because you can't have them all going at once too. So there was quite a lot of discussions needed to happen between the teams and then as a school as well as to what we would assess. Yeah.
Kaya, you set some benchmarks, are you saying stage 6 by the end of year 1? Is that yeah, how are you finding that? It's fine?
Really go well, yeah.
Yeah.
Last year was a bit of a stretch, but definitely this year it's their second year doing it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's achievable, yeah. Because I think the challenge for New Zealand, because that's Australian, that's sort of what they've say is a good sort of benchmark, but we have kids coming in on their 5th birthday. Are you still doing that, or is everyone doing cohort entry? Yeah, so that struggle, so you have to think about, how many weeks they've been at school. So some kids only get, 1 term and others get 3 or 4, so yeah, you just need to think about that. It's Australian sort of benchmark, but if you guys are, it's fine for you guys, you think, yeah. Does that, everyone understand what I'm saying with that? Stage 6 by the end of year 1? Yeah. So this is our assessment sheets, which are in our shared drive. Again, you pop the name in and they heat map. Yeah, these ones do heat map. Yep. So you can see there, 5, 2, 3. So you can put in the year level, age, and how many weeks at school, so you know where they're at. Red needs attention, orange gaining mastery, and green mastery. And there's one of these so that's the little learners stages across there. So we've got one for the little learners assessment sheets, and then we've got the stages down the bottom on this one, and it breaks it down into your grapheme phoneme knowledge, single word reading, and then into the next stage, and with heart words. Same sort of thing. So just make a copy of those if you want to use them. And you've seen this one, I think we showed you this one last time, the Liz Kane PA screening tool, same thing with the heat mapping. Any questions on those data sheets?
I really recommend if you're doing assessment and you're loading it in, do it with a team, do it with a team member. It's so much easier if they tell you and you load it in, because it's quite hard work getting it all lined up and getting the colours and things, so it does make it a lot quicker to do.
We've had someone go and do the whole thing and then realise that they've missed a line or something, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah. But it's great how there's so many that you can, there's lots of ways to collect the data, but I think that whole heat mapping is a really good way to do it. It's so visual and it's really quick and easy to see those children that need support, and it's really easy to see that teaching of that rule didn't quite go well, I need to go back and review it, or I need to do it again.
Alright, we're moving out of assessment and we're now moving into what does a lesson plan look like. And we're going to show you what it looks like over a week, and Jo's going to do some explicit teaching and show you the model. So before we start, we're just going to have a little quick look at this video about cognitive load theory, and then we'll have some questions after that. You alright?
Imagine that you're a student. It's Friday and school is out in just a few short hours. The weather is perfect and you can't wait to get outside. Oh no, did you just lose your pencil? Nope, found it. Your teacher is writing something you've never seen before on the smartboard. Is this a new lesson? You're not sure what those little numbers mean, and you're already a bit distracted, so by the time class ends you feel a little fuzzy. Your brain has had a lot to process, and although you don't realize it, your working memory is at capacity. Prominent educational psychologist Dr. John Sweller helped demonstrate that working memory, the cognitive powerhouse dedicated to rapid perceptual and linguistic processing, has a limited capacity. After initial processing, all incoming information is either discarded or begins its journey to long-term memory. The cognitive load theory that emerged from Sweller's research provides us with insight into how we can improve learning outcomes. To understand how this applies in the classroom, let's break it down. As you were sitting in class, your working memory was bombarded by this new information, along with millions of bits of distracting stimuli taken in through your senses. It can be very easy for working memory to be overwhelmed, but your brain has a clever strategy to address this. It sorts new information into schemas or categories based on what you already know. When incoming data doesn't fit nicely into pre-existing schemas, your brain quickly adapts those schemas or develops new ones. According to cognitive load theory, this process is both active and fluid and can be enhanced with the right supports. So what if we could start over and strategically introduce exponents in a way that would create vital connections with other more established schemas, like your strong foundational knowledge of multiplication and addition? We could then pair those connections with proven methodology, such as strategic practice and scaffolded feedback, to transform a challenging task from a potential source of frustration into a powerful aha moment that will be remembered. The more we study the science of learning, the more we can utilize research to develop better instructional materials and methods based on how the brain works. Informed by concepts like cognitive load theory, learning science empowers us to work with talented teachers to strategically design instruction in a way that capitalizes on cognitive functions. As educators and learning scientists, we can help the brain work smarter, not harder, and empower all students to unlock their full potential.
If we bear this in mind, what you've just seen there in the cognitive load theory, and we link it again to those principles of structured literacy, that's where we do direct and explicit teaching. It's really systematic, it's really cumulative, and we're being really diagnostic of those children in front of us. So while I'm teaching you a lesson, just bear those things in mind, how I'm being direct and explicit, how I'm being cumulative, how I'm sequencing things, and ensuring that children's cognitive load is not overwhelmed and that they're able to get that information into their long-term memory.
It's cutting the fluff, isn't it? And lots of practice and review. So we're going to look at what the components of a weekly literacy session is. So just bear that in mind. This is not what you should cram into one day. We're looking at it over a whole week. So we've got our phonological and phonemic awareness exercises a part of this, and you might do that as a whole class. We've got our heart words, which we're going to talk to you about a little bit later on, about how we read and write those and how we teach them. And then you do a review, which is that practice. So you review at letter level, which is just the sounds, individual sounds. We use a sound pack for that. So when you've explicitly taught a sound, then the next time you are going to review it. So that's practice. So it gets popped into your sound pack, and you're building and building on that sound pack, adding more and more in as you've taught it. So it's that opportunities for practice. So that's going to be at that sound level, and then you're going to read them and write them, and then you're going to move into word level. So this is a really helpful way of thinking about it. Sound level, word level, connected text level. And when you're at word level, you're reading and writing the words. And then we're going to do some direct teaching, a new skill. We're going to teach them something. So that's the reading and spelling at that letter level, and word level, sentence level. And then we get to a decodable book. And by the time we've got to that book, you've done all of this work, and so they have success, hopefully. That's the plan. And this is a really lovely visual from Marina at Kaiapoi North, which we really like because it shows you, you've got your phonological awareness activities at the beginning, you're then bringing letters in, it's moving into phonics, you're still working at the individual letter level, and then handwriting super important, lots of practice for handwriting, moving into then the word level, into connected text, and it could be at sentences, or it could be the decodable book. That is across a whole week, not one day. So then we've got the phonemic awareness, your letter level, word level, and connected text. Okay, you need to think about your pacing, think about the kids in front of you. Quite often when we go out and visit teachers in classrooms, they're a little bit hesitant to move them on, and I think that's just a bit of a confidence thing and getting your head around how it all works as well, because actually these kids are getting it and they're ready to get flying, and you can start moving them quite quickly through it, can't you, once they and you're obviously going to have your struggling kids that are going to need lots of repetition and lots of practice, so you have to just be diagnostic about those kids that are in front of you. There we go. It's like I knew what was coming up. All right, things to note. So that, as Joe said before, that direct and explicit literacy teaching. There's leaving no room for guessing or inquiry. This is not inquiry time. You do a 20-minute lesson roughly, whole class or literacy group. Think about what you can do whole class and what you need to do small group. Keep it peppy and high expectations of behaviour. Once the kids start to know the routines of when they're coming and working with you, they really enjoy it because they're getting success, and things start to click for them, and that light bulb moment happens, and you find that the behaviours start to improve, kids are engaged, and they can actually get success with what they're doing. 5 times a week, we say make it a priority, because some of the schools that we work in, they have huge attendance issues, so you have to hope that if you've got kids that are only coming 1 or 2 days to school a week, that you're actually teaching literacy on those days that they're there. Massive issues with COVID too, with kids taking 6 weeks off, and so yeah, you want to make sure that when they are at school, you're actually teaching literacy. Use your data and your assessments to guide you on where to start. And to begin with, we just say, do the assessment, just crack into it, just start somewhere. Have a sort of educated guess at where you think the gaps are, and just get into it. And as we said before, being diagnostic, do the children in front of me have it? Can I move faster tomorrow? Or do I actually need to go back and teach that again? They didn't get that very well. They didn't have it when I did my sound pack, so I need to go back and reteach that. All right, Joe's going to be the teacher, you're the students. I'm going to narrate what's going on. We've given you a lesson plan out there. You are all at the same stage, and the assessment data has shown what you need. What a fabulous class, you're all at the same stage. If only it was that easy. No, we're probably dreaming here, but for today you're all at the same stage. So you're at the beginning of stage 6 of the Little Learners scope and sequence, so you may have been at school for 3 to 4 terms, maybe you're into your 2nd year. You have all your consonants and vowel sounds. You're able to blend and segment CVC, that's consonant, vowel, consonant, 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 vowel, consonant words accurately and fluently, and you can blend and segment sounds and have begun to extend your PA awareness by manipulating phonemes. So that's changing them out, putting in another one. So you've had some really great teaching to be at this stage. There we go, there's the lesson overview. You'll see we've got it all broken down nicely there for you. And Joe's going to be teaching you the TCH trigraph. All right, hand it over to Joe.
Right, class. Today we're going to start with our PA exercises. You're getting so good with these now. Let's get started. The word is brush, don't say bit. Great, don't say git. Ski, don't say trim, don't say t. Scare, don't say k. So scare, don't say k. Sorry, my fault. Let's do that one again. Scare, don't say s. Beautiful. Sorry, don't do that, that's really bad. Clap, don't say k. Snap, don't say s. Climb, don't say k. Snail, don't say s. Draw, don't say d. Well done, you are doing those so nicely. Tomorrow I'm going to make them a little bit harder for you because you're doing so well. Right, let's have a look at our heart words. Let's move on to our heart words.
So just doing this whole class at this stage.
Let's read our heart words today. These are the ones we've already looked at last week. Let's go. Of and look. And today I want to teach you a new one. The new heart word I'm going to teach you is said. Said. And I'm not going to teach it at the moment. This is me coming out of teaching mode because this is quite a separate thing to be able to teach. I just want to show you that I bring in heart words, and I want to show you how I teach it later so that it sticks. Okay? So just bear in mind, this is actually, I would bring it in now and teach it at this point, but I'll show you what it looks like a little bit later.
And heart words are words that have got an irregular spelling pattern, or they are further down in the scope and sequence, and you actually haven't taught that spelling pattern yet, but you need them for the reading that you're doing. So we'll talk more about them coming up.
Right, let's move on. Can you please get your pen for me? We're going to go down the page, and I'm going to get you to write me some sound. We're going to do our sound pack first, and then we'll be writing some sounds. Let's have a look. Ready with me?
Beautiful. Stop there. And you'll notice that the picture hooks have been removed from the vowel cards because you know them now and you don't need them anymore, but some kids may still need those.
Right, now we're going to review. Last week I taught you a thing called a digraph. A digraph is when two letters come together to make a new sound.
Joe, sorry, I think it's writing sounds.
Oh, look, I'm having a mare today. Sorry. Sorry, I haven't done this workshop in a while. Right, let's try that again. Start again. Right, can you help me out? We're going to get our pens ready and you're going to go down the page for me. I'm going to give you some sounds and you're going to write them down the page. The sound is And remember, that's when two letters come together to make a new sound. Shh. And there's two letters. So see how I'm just reminding those children that need it with the scaffolding? Can you go to the top of the page now for me where you wrote that first sound, and can you please go down and tell me the letters, the sounds that those letters make? So you're going to go tick and go sh, sh, and well done, good reminding. Now, who can remind me what a digraph is? A digraph, we did it last week. A digraph, we learnt the ch digraph. And it's when two letters, do it with me, two letters come together to make one sound. And last week we had C and C here and our H, and they came together to make the ch sound. And we learnt another one too. The one before that was shh. Say it with me. A digraph is great, to make a new sound. Well done. Yeah, new sound. Good. So we're going to look at some words and review that now, what we did. Let me have a look.
Yeah.
Remember, we've got CH making ch. Let's read some words now. Here too. Do it on our cards here, or you can do it up there. So let's do, or we'll do it on the cards. Let's do chop. Inch. Chum. Well done. And well done. You're going to write some words with this now. Can you go down the page for me with in it? And we're going to do chop. 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 You're going to write for me inch. Can you please tell me the word? Inch. Let's do sound fingers up. Inch. Inch. Write it down for me. What you're going to do for me next is chin. Say the word for me. Chin. Sound fingers up. Chin. Chin. Last one is chum. When you're a friend, you're a chum. Sound fingers up. Say the word chum, ch, chum.
Great to see you going left to right with
Well
your sound
done.
fingers as well. But it's hard to get that palm up to you and palm out to the kids.
Right, let's go to the top of the page now, and I want you to call those words out and tick them off as you go. Chop, inch, chin, and chum. Well done. I love the way you've remembered that CH makes the ch sound. Now, I've got a new thing that I want to teach you today. A new thing, and it's a new sound. Well, it's not a new sound, it's a new way of writing the same sound we have. So we know that C and H makes the ch sound. And we also have another way of writing the ch sound, and that is using T, C, H. That's where T, C, H has come together to make a new sound. And the new sound is the same as this one, ch. When T, C and H come together, they make the ch sound. And this is what we call the longest spelling right after short vowel rule. Longest spelling right after short vowel. And I want to show you what I mean. So we call this the longest spelling because it's got 3 letters in it. This has only got 2 letters. This is making ch, the digraph, and this is a trigraph because it's got 3 letters and it's making the ch sound. So it's the longest spelling. I might want to spell a word. The word is witch. Witch. And this is a witch with a big hat on, witch that flies on a broomstick. Witch. Ch. Witch. I can hear the ch sound at the end of the word. And I've got to choose. I can spell it with a CH, or I can spell it now with knowing that TCH makes the ch sound. So the one that I use is TCH because our rule is longest spelling right after short vowel. And what I do, instead of saying that big mouthful every time, I have my L, my S, R, A, S, V, and I write it like this in shorthand. Longest spelling right after short vowel. And I'm talking about my TCH. Can you all say it with me? Longest spelling right after short vowel. I said to you I wanted to spell the word witch. W-I-T-C-H. I can hear my ch at the end. I've got to think, do I use my longest spelling or do I use my CH spelling? If it's right next door to a vowel, a short vowel, I know I have to use TCH. So if I go ch, I can hear there's an here. I know I have to use TCH. Let me write it down. Ch. And if I'm going to sound mark this word, I'm going to go ch. Let me think of another word that I could spell. I might want to spell the word fetch. Fetch. Let's see. Fetch. I can see or hear. Where can I hear that ch sound in this word? At the end. So I can hear the ch sound, but now I've got to check. Is there a short vowel right next door to my ch sound? Ch. Yes, there is. I know I have to use my long spelling of the ch sound. Ch. Let me do one more. You can do this one with me. Let's have a look at the word latch. Say it for me. Let's get our sound fingers up. Ch. I can hear a ch sound. Is it right next to to a short vowel. Ch. Yes, it is. What spelling am I going to use? My long spelling or my short spelling? Long. Let's write it down. Ch. Okay, I've got another one for you. You're going to have to think about this one. The next word I want you to think about is lunch. Lunch. Let's do our sound fingers. Say the word for me. Lunch. I can hear my ch sound at the end of the word. Is my vowel, short vowel, right next door to it? What's in the way? Naughty N has got in the way. So I know I'm not going to be using my long spelling. I'm going to be using my short spelling. Ch. Ch. Right. We're going to finish that today because you've learnt that. Tell me, what are the two ways that you can spell the ch sound? What are the two ways? What have we got? CH and TCH. So tomorrow I'm going to be putting in our sound pack a little card and it's going to have TCH written on it. When you see it, you'll know it makes the ch sound.
So you can see explicit teaching there. This is the I do part of the I do, we do, you do. And you can see that they really need to know and have a really good understanding of their short vowels and using that terminology, because Joe is saying, can you hear the short vowel? Is it a short vowel? So they really need to know those short vowels and that they are short vowels. Okay, so that was day one, short and sweet. And now we're moving into day two. And this time we're going to start with your PA again. You're going to do your heart words. And we are reviewing that one that we taught yesterday, SAID, so that now pops in and they're reading and writing it. Sound pack, we're reading and writing our previously learned sounds, and we've included, as Joe said, the TCH. That's now popped into the sound pack, so that when you do your sound pack and they come across it, it's very good practice. And we're now looking at taking TCH to word level, day two, and we're going to word level. So we're decoding and encoding, which basically means reading and writing, reading and spelling.
Okay, class, we're going to read some words. Remember, we looked yesterday and we looked at TCH coming together. It's a trigraph coming together to make the ch sound. And it's the longest spelling of the ch sound. Let's read some words now that have this pattern in it. Do it with me. Which, ditch, catch. Let's write some words now. Get your pens ready. I'm going to get you to write me the word fetch. Sound fingers up. Fetch. Fetch. Remember our rule is longer spelling right after short vowel. So, yes, I can hear it short. Ch. So I know I'm going to use my TCH sound. That's what I need. Next word is notch. Notch. I have to take a bit of a notch out of it, put a notch into my pants belt.
Joe, back to lunch.
Yeah. Don't know where I was
Big
going
morning
with that.
tea.
Notch. Okay, say the word for me. Notch. Let's do sound fingers up. Notch. Notch. Let me see. Is it next door to a short vowel? Notch. Yes, I know what I've got to do. Use my longer spelling. So see how I'm scaffolding this? I feel like a real dick, to be honest, doing it in front of you, because you are just, you know this. But just remember, a lot of children don't. A lot of children will need that scaffolding. So just keep doing it.
Sorry.
You feel silly.
I was got a wee question.
Yes.
I forgot about this last time.
Oh
but
yeah, sure.
I'm left-handed.
Yes.
So my sound hand.
Yep.
Do I go this
Spelling hand, writing hand. I mean, writing hand, spelling hand.
spelling hand?
Yep.
But my palm is to them. So do I go?
Are you measuring your teaching?
I'm teaching the children.
Yes. And you're
I'm
left-handed.
left-handed.
And so you're going to go that way.
So
So it is okay.
And then you're going to go and put it together that way, because that's going from left to right.
No,
But
that's
that
for
faces
for
not.
you,
But
the other way,
that's right for
palm,
me, but for
palm
them.
to you, for, yeah, yeah.
So I can
Yeah.
make palm to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
palm to you,
Oh, palm
for
to
you,
you.
yeah, yeah, sorry. Anyone else left-handed? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
tricky, isn't it? Left-handed rule the world.
I have a question. You're encoding with your spelling, when you're reading the words, you're not decoding, you're just assuming that they got it. When you're reading the words.
Some may need to decode, yeah,
You're not,
yeah.
as a general rule, you're not decoding.
You probably would still be decoding these words because
At
they're
this
just
point
new.
you would, because they would have just seen it,
Yeah.
so it's so tricky, because you can read them, right?
Yeah, so for
So-
you, they're just popping off the page.
yeah.
Are you when you're
I
modelling
would have
it,
totally
you're
modelled that,
decoding.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's, some kids they will just pop off the page and they'll read them, other kids will need that scaffolding that Jo's done. So she's always trying to think, who do I need to support, how can I give them that little reminder, remember your LSRAV, remember this, and so she's setting them up for success all the time, and some kids won't need that, others will.
Definitely, yeah, so you're always just scaffolding.
So it's just,
The normal kind of children that use their left hand.
Yeah,
because you're
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And you'll have the palm, they'll
So
have the palm.
are they
Palm
using
to,
their
yeah.
right hand or their left hand?
So they're using their right hand for writing and their left hand for spelling. So they have a writing hand and a spelling hand. Spelling, yeah.
So I'll be like,
It-
off.
Beautiful, beautiful.
But then if I've got a left-handed child, they will have it.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
You've got an idea, right?
Yeah.
That's easy.
We use the spelling fingers because as they get older, they can just tap on their leg or on the table. They feel a bit dicky doing that, you know, when they're a bit older. So if you're doing something like this, they might not probably want to do that as they get a bit older, but, and we do sort of use that for syllables as well, so, yeah. But the writing hand and spelling hand is so that they don't put their pen down and then use their spelling fingers, so it's one for each. They can do it on the run, on the fly.
Yeah, they've always got it. Okay, let's do one more word of spelling, and I do more than this, I'm just shortening it, but I probably give them at least 6 to 10 words. We're just going to do 3 today, so you get a feel. But the next word I'm going to get you to do is latch. Latch. Let's say it.
Read my mind.
Sound fingers up. Latch. Where did I hear that ch sound? Where did I hear that ch? At the end, you've got it. What's our rule we're doing today? Say it for me. Long spelling right after short vowel. Let's check if I've got a short vowel. Ch. Yes, and I might have a wee one over here if you wouldn't mind putting your sound fingers up for me. Like this, and I'd be going to, I'd go, oh, let's just check, let's just squeeze that. Is it an Okay, so that's that real kinesthetic stuff for those children that need it. It's a short vowel. I'm going to use what spelling? TCH. Write it down for me. Now I want you to go to the top of the page where you've written the first one, and I want everybody to take their pen and I want you to tick it. You're going to go and read it for me. Fetch. Everybody's going to do it. Let's go. Fetch, notch, and latch. Well done.
Okay, so that was the writing of and reading of the words, and we're at word level. And now we're moving into day 3. So day 3, again, you're starting with your PA, and we're looking at manipulation, your heart words, you're reading the heart words, sound pack, we've got that TCH popped in there, and we might be using that as an opportunity when we're using a sound pack, just to say, remember this is our new one, what does it mean, and just a quick review of it. And then we are reviewing our reading and writing of our words. And this time we're now moving into where we're taking it to a dictated sentence, and Jo's going to show you how we do that.
Right, class, you have been doing so well with this TCH, and it makes what sound for me? When do we use this? When do we use our TCH spelling for the ch sound? Who's going to be a brave soul and tell me? Long spelling
Beautiful.
right after short vowel. Well done. I love it. And love the way we're reading some words now with that spelling pattern in it. We've been writing some words with that spelling pattern in it. Now I want to get us to do a sentence with the spelling in it. And I want you to read this sentence for me. But first of all, let's have a wee look at it. We've got our word here. We can see it's got ch at the end of it. Why have we got CH and not TCH in that word? Sorry, I'm looking at you.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Because there's the short vowel.
There is a short vowel there, but what's in the way?
Oh,
What's
the
that naughty old N? That's why it's not right next door. You were so right. There is a short vowel, but it's not right next door, so we only use CH. Let's look at this word. Ditch. Why did they use TCH in that one?
Because it's straight after the vowel.
You got it. That's correct. We use TCH because it was a short vowel right next door. Remember, it's got to be right next door, okay? When we write our longer spelling of TCH. Let's have a wee look here too. We've got the word look. Remember, that was one of our heart words. Okay, so you're going to be remembering that little bit in the middle. We know our O, we know our K, but that O has been spelled like two O's. And have a wee look at buy. Remember last week we did buy too, and we had my and buy. So you're going to know those two heart words are in our sentence today too. Let's have a read of the sentence together. Look at the bunch by the ditch. Right, let's have it one more time together. Look at the bunch by the ditch. I wonder what they're thinking about a bunch. Maybe it's a bunch of bananas. Can you say that sentence again for me and think about what it could be, that bunch? Look at the bunch by the ditch. Say it to the person next to you really quietly.
So she's done this several times, hoping that you're holding it into your long-term working memory there. And you've also got the capital letter and full stop as well. You can start to bring in the complete sentence and the punctuation in here as well.
Write it down for me.
There you go. And it's taken away from the screen and you're having to hold that in your memory.
So write it down for me, that sentence down, write it down.
If someone says, I've forgotten, you just start to read the beginning of it and hopefully that'll jog their memory and they'll remember. And you know those ones in the class that you're going to need a little extra support by, so you'll probably be over there already ready to jump in there and support them.
Right, let's check our sentence now and check we've got all the things we need.
Oh, okay. Put it back. There we go.
Can you please give me a tick if you've got a capital letter in your sentence? If you've got a full stop, give yourself a tick. If you have written bunch with a CH, give yourself a tick. Have a look at the word ditch. If you put TCH, give yourself a tick. Can you sound mark or put above those two words we looked at a love heart, because that's one of our heart words and that's one of our heart words, and that too actually when I think about it. And before, and say if you've done this, sometimes we get children to do it on their whiteboard, so I'd be saying to them, before you rub this off, can you please read it to me again? Let's go. Look at the bunch by the ditch. Well done. Really getting this pattern now, really nice.
Okay. Right, so we're now moving into day 4. Again, starting with PA and moving into heart words, going into our sound pack. We're reviewing, so we're still decoding and encoding, reading and spelling those TCH words. And now we are going to take it to a decodable text with TCH. So Joe's going to show you how we do a decodable book. We're going to be using the Little Learners, the Munch Bunch Fun Pack. And it's quite good. We've got the little character cards that go with these as well that you can print off the website.
today I'm so excited because we've been working so hard on this TCH spelling. Who can tell me some things about TCH? When do we use that spelling? After a short vowel. Is it when the short vowels are like a wee way away, or is it when it's right next door? Exactly, we use it when it's right next door. Why do we call that the longer spelling of TCH? It's 3 letters. And what's the other way we know of doing CH? Oh, sorry. Ch. She told you. Well done. Excellent. So we know we can start using CH, or we can start using TCH. I've got a wonderful book here that I want to read to you today, and you read with me. You're going to read along with me. You'll see in this book it's got CH spellings and it's got TCH spellings. And we're going to read it together as my little group, and we're going to look through it. Let me read some little bits first. Pip and Tim had a lot of cash. They had sold all the junk in the shed. We are rich. Let's go to the Munch Bunch Fun Park. Now, you'll see in this word here, they've got rich. And I'm not sure if anybody noticed it yet, but rich. Rich. We're not using our TCH spelling because it is an exception to the rule. And remember, these are generalizations. They generally work, but there is a few like rich, such, and much. And children will point this out to you, which is so good. I love it because it's making me realise they're thinking about the rules. You're going to then say to the children, that's so good, I love the way that you've got that, and but that is an exception to the rule. Here's a page over here or a big poster, let's go and add that to our exceptions wall. Okay? But generally, this works well. Okay? And there's just a few that you need to be aware of that time. So, we'll carry on. I love that park, said Pip. Can we go, Dad? Yes, he said, let's go. At the fun park, there was so much to do. So you'll see they're using that there. Munch Bunch Fun Park, catch frogs in the ditch, play chess with the chimp, chat with the Munch Bunch witch. So lovely with Munch Bunch, you're seeing that it's got the N with the CH and witch is the TCH. So lots of opportunities for them to see this pattern, for them to be able to read it. By the time they've got to this book, it should be pretty fluent because they've been reading all through this whole week. They've been reading words, writing words with the pattern in it. So, yeah, I think people are pretty familiar with this.
So they wouldn't get a book until like the Thursday?
Yes. Thursday they would get to see the book. They would take the book home with them. Prior to that, they would have been given a list of words with the TCH spelling in it or with CH spelling in it, and they would have to read and write those, or they would have been given maybe for homework a roll and read to do at home as well. Yeah.
I've got a question. Do you
Yes.
introduce the book and go through it like you
Yeah, I do.
You would still do that?
Yeah, I'd still do exactly the same as what I did for
Yeah.
a normal book. I'd introduce it. I said, oh, what's happening to Pip today? What's she got on? Tell me what she's got on. Anybody? What's she got on there? Dressing up. I wonder what she's doing with dress up. That's interesting. She looks like a witch. Witch. Oh, we know how to spell the word witch, don't we? So I'd be definitely doing a lot of that. At the back of the book, you can see some speed sounds with those patterns in them.
So you might even just send those home as a home activity, just the sounds.
At the back too, they have there's speed sounds and your heart words that are going to be in this book too.
And they've comprehension questions as well, don't they?
They do. Yes, so comprehension questions. Why are Pip and Tip feeling rich? Which fun activity would you like to do at the Munch Bunch Fun Park? What did Pip and Tim choose? Who was the little witch? And find the words that mean terrible or awful. So I love too that you've still got that comprehension going on as well. So that's that other part of that rope where we're talking about that language comprehension too.
Has anyone seen the non-fiction books that go with the little learners? They're amazing, and some kids really love non-fiction. And they've got a little QR code on the back with beautiful activities that you can just get for free as well. So if anyone's looking for book purchases for next year. I really highly recommend Little Learners in the non-fiction series. They're fantastic, and we are not sales reps for Little Learners, just sounded a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But they, I might show you a bit later after morning tea the activities that go with them, because they're amazing. Okay, so that was day 4. So by the time they've got to that book, they're actually able to read it. So when they take it home, hopefully there's no tears, and they have a lovely, successful reading session with their parents. And then we get to day 5, saying Fun Day Friday, so you can set up your games, buddy reading, all those things that you normally do, fluency practice, spelling on whiteboards, so lots of opportunities for practice, and you can use this time to check in with students that might not have picked it up so quickly, so another quick little explicit teaching they might need, or you can use that time to do a wee bit of your assessment. Here's some example of some activities, and we have these in the shared drive, and you see there's a roll and read. We've got one of those for each of the stages. There's some fluency phrases, so they're just reading the phrase, not a full sentence. Fluency practice, and you can play games like Connect 4 with those. And you've got word find. Some kids love a word find, some adults love a word find. Are you a Wordle fan? Yeah. Question?
So this is the whole class session, right?
So if you're doing whole class and you're doing a group or you're doing independent, you would follow the same format, and because all of the components are there that you need for a lesson, so you'd be following it depending on if it was a whole class, you'd be teaching it, or if you were just having a group in front of you that were at that level of teaching TCH, or you might have just 1 or 2 children where you're doing tier 3. But you are going to follow the same components.
So you're doing small groups on top of that?
Not if I've taught it as a whole class. So say I've identified from my data, children don't seem to know the TCH.
Yeah.
So then I'd go, instead of me teaching it as little groups, I'd be going, I'm going to teach this as a whole class. So I'd be doing that.
And then in addition to that, are your children having small group reading each day with a different book?
Not reading, no,
So
no,
not
no,
getting a
this
book
is
on
it,
Thursday.
this is it, yep, so this is what we call now, instead of a guided reading group, we call this a literacy group. Yep, so this is now, you're now tying into, you've got spelling, reading and writing, sort of within a literacy session. Does that make sense? Yeah.
But more than likely you will be working with groups, but there's some components of that you can do whole class, like you could do the PA quick activities at the beginning, everybody together. You might even do the heart words all together, and then you might break into your literacy groups.
So your literacy groups would be based on where those children are sitting in the scope and sequence.
And you would do that with each of your groups.
With your, in addition, as in programs, would you be doing a story writing
Yes.
slot as well?
Do you guys want to add anything to that? Bridget? How you run your groups, or?
Well, for me, personally, with where my children are at, that would have been more of a small group session.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, that's quite advanced for
Yeah.
new entrants.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't be doing all that as a whole class.
Yeah.
But that's, a small group.
Yeah, so you're more than likely going to be working at that group level, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends what children you've got in front of you. So at the moment, because we're only into our second year of school-wide structured literacy, we're finding in the senior school, which is year 5 to 8 for years, that we're still grouping and using groups. But we can see that as our children, the gap's shorter and we've got more kids where they should be, teachers will then adapt and move to a lot of whole class teaching and then pull the children, like Joe said, out that may have gaps, and that's where we would implement group work while the whole class that are getting it are probably working on independent activities that we've just taught or have been taught already. So it just depends.
Yeah, and it's going to be messy for the first few years while you're backfilling all of this. You know, a lot of kids, the older kids we're talking about, they have to go back and teach some of this stuff because they haven't had it.
Yeah.
So that's what Natasha was saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes we will expose in the whole class, even though they're not there, we do expose them because they are really good at just
some of them really good at just picking
Yeah.
things up, just like
Yeah.
all the phonological awareness, we always teach whole class and
Yeah.
small group.
Yeah.
And the heart words as well.
Yeah, and like Natasha said about looking at the kids in front of you, so you could do phonological awareness whole class, but then your struggling group will need another go at it, you know, so they're getting another go, and they might even get, you know, learning support person to come and do another session with them, so you really are looking at those, you know, kids and what they need.
And also, for me, I teach year 2, and last week I did whole class, it's 1 week anyway, but I did whole class for half the session because 2 groups were learning it,
Yeah.
and they ended up needing to learn at the same time. And 2 groups, I thought it wasn't bad for them to review it.
Yeah.
So they reviewed the learning as well, and then I took those 2 groups that review and did separate.
Yeah.
So even though I usually take groups, you can mix it up.
It's good bang for your buck, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Based on my teaching, I realised that actually those other groups, there was a couple of kids who needed to review the stuff that I was teaching, might as well do a whole class.
And you're only talking 15, 20 minutes or something, it's not like you're gonna be doing this for your whole day, yeah.
And that's where there's a lot of, you've got to, you know, traditionally we've probably been where we just have this reading group, we have this reading group, and we sort of move them through. With structured literacy, there's a lot more fluidity, there's a lot more taking your data and seeing what those children need in front of you. There's no point in teaching 3 lots of children the same rule if they're sort of about a similar level, so put them together. So you've got to start thinking a bit more, you know, how can I make this work for me as a teacher as well? Because
For your own sanity.
your own sanity, there's no point. And so that, what guides you with that is your data. What guides you is, oh my goodness, there's a whole strip of red here. I've taught TCH, the children have just not got it. I'm going to teach it again. Okay, there will be a few that have got it, but it's certainly not going to harm them. What I would do with those kiddies is I would extend them and give them longer words, and I'd give them, I'd say, you two over there, can you please add for me a suffix onto that word that's got TCH? Okay, so I'd say to them, you've got a different one to do, I'm going to differentiate within doing that whole class. Yeah. I think what I wanted to sort of show you too is, if you look down the side here, and all of the components that we covered, so we did PA, we did heart words, then we reviewed what we'd done previously, then we taught a new skill, we took that to word level, sentence level, then we got to a dictated sentence in a decodable book. What I wanted to show you is that needs to happen despite if it's a whole class, if it's a small group, or if it's a one-to-one, or if you're doing a tiered thing. The components don't change, so you're still doing the same components. So I think I just wanted to make sure you knew what all of those components are. Remember that that's been done over a week. I'm saying a week. It might take some children 2 weeks. So again, that's where you've got to be diagnostic and think about those children in front of you. You're not going to race and move on because we're wanting to get mastery. We want them to have that really good solid base before we move them on. And that's where it is a little bit tricky at the start there, trying to work out the pace and trying to work out how fast do I go. But you are looking for mastery. But the beautiful thing about structured literacy is that you can move on because you always know you're coming back round to review. So that's the really nice thing about it too, and you'll teach something else and then you come back and review it again, and you're always bringing in review. Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to talk through this one.
Yeah, so what we thought we'd do, I'm not going to teach this one, but if you look on the other side there, and I want to show you what this is leading on to, and I know a lot of you are junior teachers, so this, you'll be thinking, oh, what, but I think it's really important for you to see what happens a bit later on, so you can see what all your lovely work is doing to help those teachers and help those children as they move up through the school. We usually run this as a role play, but I'm not going to do that today because I think it's probably a bit much. But if you look down, this one here is where we're teaching the 3 sounds of EA. Okay, and this is quite an advanced sort of rule that we'd be teaching. But I just want to show you the same sort of thing. Is down the side here, we're doing exactly the same components. We've got our PA at the top. We'd be looking at heart words. We've got a sound pack review, and we're reviewing spelling from a previously taught grapheme. we're going to be teaching a new skill, and I've got in here the new skill is the 3 sounds of the EA, and it's list 34 from the code. We would be taking that to word level, then we'd be taking it to word level again there, and then we're coming down to sentence level, and then we'd be starting to teach, look at a decodable passage or a decodable book that's got those patterns in it. It's just to show you how you can extend it, but exactly the same components as teaching the TCH rule.
So we're just going to show you what a slideshow looks like for older kids.
So you can see that I did it with cards there, on the first, when I was giving you the cards. You can do it either or, so you can have a choice of doing it on the cards. Some people prefer to do index cards if you've got a wee smaller group, and sometimes your younger children much better with cards because you can hand them to them. But probably more your senior, if you like technology. I'm not a great technology fan, I still do cards and things like that, but if you like technology, it does seem to suit the older children. So we would say to the children, start with our expectations, so we just start with this.
And this is whole class.
And then we're talking about our goals for today, which is to take care with our handwriting and to spell our EA words with accuracy. We'd start the session with our PA exercises, so we'd be doing that from David Kilpatrick. Then we'd be looking at heart words, so we'd be getting them to read those heart words, and we'd be going across, and these would be all that we've taught before. And then we'd be adding in a new heart word. So our new heart word today is other. We'd be splitting that up and showing them what that looks like and how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to do heart words so that they stick. We'll do that a bit later on, but just wanted to give you an idea. We now start to include a little bit more vocabulary for those older children. We're starting to bring in that other side of the rope, where we're talking about language comprehension, and this sort of links in with what they were doing at school, which was cross country. We're starting to use words that link in with that, so that's like stamina. Now don't freak out about all this, because this has taken such a long time for us to do at Redcliffe and get organised, but I just want you to get a feel for what it's going to look like. We start moving into synonyms and antonyms, putting it into a sentence. Then we do our sound pack review.
Just whip through this because we haven't taught you all of this. So we're not setting you up for success if we make you do this.
So just think this is, we're talking about the year 4 level here. We start to add in some morphology as well. Now they're going to start doing reviewing those sounds that we have been teaching them. So for example, I'd say to them, can you please tell me all the ways you know how to spell the long A sound. In fact, you can do that now if you like. Tell me all the ways you know how to spell the long A sound. Don't look up there, she's cheating. So this is your review. Now we do a little bit more review and go a little bit more deeper. We go, what meat do we get from a pig? That would be pork. And so I'm looking at whether I'm reviewing the OR spelling, the P or K, pork, and just seeing if they've got that OR happening. Yeah, just whip through that one.
Alright, get them all
yeah,
to it?
yeah. Just, this is a feel, just remember this is a feel. Any questions?
So you're getting them to write those words?
Yes, they're writing them down. Okay, this is my direct and explicit teaching now of the new rule. Okay, and this rule is when we're talking about the 3 sounds of EA, which is the hook that we use is called cheap thread breaks. If I look at the word cheap, cheap, I can see EA is making the long E sound. If I do the word thread, did. I can see my EA in that word is making the short E sound. If I look at the word breaks, B, A, K, breaks. I can see the EA in that word is making the long A sound. So we've got 3 ways or 3 sounds for the same spelling. EA comes together, it's a vowel team. It's when 2 or more letters come together to make a vowel sound. We can see EA is making a long E sound in the word cheap, a short E sound in the word thread, and a long A sound in the word breaks. And I've got something to tell you. This one here is the sound that's most common. This one, a little bit less. Hardly any words that have that long A spelt with an EA. But guess what? It's break, grate, and steak. And they're words that we use quite often, so I need to let you know about this EA spelling making the long A sound. Let's look at some other words. Treat. Eat. It's making the long E sound. Bread. Making the E sound. And rate. There's our long A sound. Now, I would add to my sound pack, and I'd say to you, tomorrow I'm going to show you EA, the vowel team, where E and A have come together and they're making 3 sounds. You've got an asterisk up there, 3 asterisks, and you're going to tell me the 3 sounds. You're going to use the hook that we've got, which was cheap, thread, breaks. So we're going to say E, and A. E, A. So when you see that tomorrow and I flip it up on the screen, you'll be able to tell me it's E, A. And we're doing it in that pattern because we know E is the more common way of hearing it. Shorter, not so common, and very rare. And just so you know, that's our long sound, that's our short sound when we've got the little smiley bit up top. Let's read some words now with this spelling pattern in it. Team. Head. Now let's try this one out first. Let's have a look at the word head. Remember I said to you the long E sound is the one to try first. Let's try that first and see if it makes sense. H-E-D. Heed. That's not a good one to do. Let's do that. Can you try steak? Let's try that one. Steak. Let's do our E is our first one to do. Eek. Steak. Let's try our next one. The short E sound. Eek. Stick. Let's try our last rare sound. Ache. Steak. Well done. Let's keep going through. I'm not going there. Homophones. So you talk about that if you needed to, if somebody brought it up. Yeah, but I wouldn't get sidetracked with a lot of that because these can go off onto so many tangents. Then we'd give them a triple T chart, and I'd be saying to you, right, can you please write this word down for me? Bead. Say it for me. Bead. Sound fingers up. B-E-D. Which column are you going to put it in? Are you going to put it in long E, short E, or long A? So can you see how it's getting heaps more sophisticated? But imagine if they don't have all this lovely base that you've built from down here to be able to do this stuff here. So session 2, we've got our PA exercises again. We've taught other, and now we're going to bring in another heart word, which is mother, and you're going to group those lovely heart words because it's got the similar pattern. We're doing our sound pack again. You know this one now? Yep. My sound pack, tell me the 3 sounds for EA. E, F, A. Beautiful. And this would be our phoneme encoding, where I'm saying to you, can you please show me and tell me the 3 ways to write the long E sound? That would be that one. Yep. Going down the page. Here's another review for you. So I'm going back to my direct and explicit teaching it again, checking in with everybody, doing a check for understanding. You can see my words I'm giving people now are a little bit longer, or 2-syllable words, so we've got teamwork. instead. And you can see I'm starting to add in my morphology there with my ing, so we're definitely starting to extend the children. Ed. This one we're talking about a 2-syllable word, 3-syllable word. Getting them to do that, yep. Sorry, this is real whip through. I just want you to see what it looks like, I think, yeah. Session 3, I'll just get you to see the sentences that we get to that are using that EA pattern. So remember, this has been done over a whole week.
The kids get the hang of it, they know the routine.
So I had beans, a peach and a cup of tea on my break. So I'd be saying to the children, let's have a look at those words that have got the EA spelling pattern in them. Then I'd be talking about too, and I'd start to bring in now a little bit more about punctuation. And I'd be saying, oh, we're doing some lists, we're listing things now, we're talking about a comma, and they would have talked about that before and they'd know that we need to use a comma. So you can start to make your dictated sentences a lot more complicated as well, and bring in that punctuation. Great, I think we've done our dash, don't you reckon?
Can I just ask a question going
Yes.
back to the junior?
Yeah.
Just at a new entrant level, if you've had them for a week and they have only picked up one letter sound, not even the name of the letter, when do you wait to go onto the text until they've got all that first sound pack?
If you're talking about stage 1, are you talking about
Yes,
stage 1? So if they've got their first 8 letters in stage 1, I'd be starting to they could go onto the stage 1 books.
Right, so
'Cause
wait till they've actually got
I'd get like
sounds.
6 out of 8. You know, I wouldn't wait for full mastery
Yeah.
because you could be a while.
Yeah.
But
But one or
remember,
two.
one or two. It's just going to be recipe for disaster. Yeah.
Okay, so just take 5 minutes to talk to the people around you about the lesson plan.
I just wanted to start this session with just giving you a wee feel for what's coming up, because and just how our workshops have come about and how we sort of have structured them. So in workshop 1, which is the one you're in at the moment, the second part of workshop 1 is giving you the why. Okay, so you've got the why as to why structured literacy is a good approach to use, what the science of reading is, and then what actually are the components of structured literacy, and then how you go about teaching it. What we found is when we ran that we've run that workshop a few times now, and then we've discovered from that is that, and I will be the first person to put my hand up to say my own teacher knowledge of the rules, conventions or generalisations of the English language was poor, I'll say. I thought I was doing okay, but if you asked me, tell me how many ways to spell the long A sound, I wouldn't be able to give you that many. So, and I think I found that I'm perhaps not alone. So, to give you the confidence to be able to teach that, you need to know it well. And so we've created workshop 2, which we're going to be running for you next term. And that's over 2 sessions. That's going to be, it's a bit of a 2-pronged approach. So we will give you the teacher knowledge, and we'll also show you how to teach those rules, conventions or generalisations, patterns in a structured literacy way. So that's coming up. So if you weren't sure that there was 3 sounds of EA, or you weren't sure of that, the TCH, they had the short vowel sound next to it to make it TCH, all of that sort of stuff is coming as well. So I think you'll find once we do workshop 1 and we complete workshop 2, it will all sort of come together. And then we do have another workshop which we call workshop 3, funny enough. That's where we offer schools to go to Redcliffe School to actually go and see the structured literacy in action at the school. So we're running a observation day on the 16th this month, and you get to go and see we do a video of a whole class, and that's a year 3-4. Get to watch that, and we sort of unpick that, and then you get to go and observe 2 other lessons of your choice. So you might want to go and watch a tier 1 or 2 or 3 session, or go to a junior classroom, senior and middle classroom as well. So just so you know, there's a bit of a progression
And
happening.
that one's sold out in June, but we are going to be running it next term and potentially term 4. We'll see how term 4 goes.
Just wanted to give you a feel for what was coming up.
And we find that when we do that workshop 2 with people, it's when the penny starts to drop and it's like, now it makes sense. So it's sort of what we talked about before, about feeling uncomfortable, that you don't know this stuff, it's okay, just, it's coming down the track.
Bear with.
All right, we're moving into teaching heart words. Joe's going to talk to you about heart
So
words.
remember when I was doing the lesson plan there and we inserted in heart words, and I said I'm going to teach you those a little bit later, because this is people often say, how do you teach heart words so they stick? What's a way of doing it? So I've taken this process, and it's called the 4-step process, and it's by a lady called Lynn Stone. Lynn's a linguist who's based in Melbourne, really amazing linguist and a real proponent of structured literacy. If you get if you go on
Lifelong Literacy is her website.
Lifelong Literacy, and also if you do any searches of hers, she brings up videos of her teaching, and she's absolutely amazing, got amazing knowledge. So I really would recommend that you look her up. But to teach these tricky little heart words, so a heart word is a high frequency word, and it can be non-decodable word, and that's because it's got an unusual spelling pattern, and it's come from usually a different country. We've borrowed it, okay? So we're using their spelling, but we've borrowed it. And the heart word can be decodable, but the child does not yet have enough of the spelling pattern, because that spelling pattern is going to be taught later on in the scoping sequence. So for example, the word my, we had to teach that as a heart word because we use it quite a lot at the start there when we're getting children to write sentences, and also read my, it's in decodable books, but by about year 3, 4, even earlier, we would teach them that Y can make a long I sound at the end of the word my. It can make Y can be a consonant and a vowel, but in this word it's acting as a vowel, and it's a 1-syllable word. And so in 1-syllable words, if we have an I at the end of the word, we use Y. So my, by, shy, Y, and you would be teaching the children that. So you would have taught this as a heart word, and then when they see it, they'll go, now I know what that is. So it just goes from not being really a heart word, it's already imprinted, but now they know, actually this makes a lot of sense. This is a decodable word. Yeah. So Lynn Stone has created this really great process called 4-step process, and just wanted to show you today what we do. And Andrea's just handing out the same sheet. Welcome to write on it. And it's also in the shared drive. So what we do is we basically split it up into quadrants. And the first quadrant there, you're going to look at the heart word that I've chosen to teach is wood. Wood. And in the first quadrant, you're going to talk about meaning. And often you'll put a definition there of what the word means. Some of these words are function words, which means they're really hard to put into a definition. So then you would put it into a sentence. And I'd be asking the children, I say, would. I would like a biscuit. Who can put that into a sentence for me? Let's think about that word would. Where have we heard it? Would you like to go with me to a party? So you'd really start unpacking it and so putting it into a sentence that is a function word. Then we move over here to the second quadrant, and that is where we look at the structure of the word. So that's where we're looking at what's actually making up this word. And as you can see with wood, I'd be writing it out like this. I'd be saying to the children, I can hear a w at the start of that word. W, o, d, wood. W, o, d, wood. I can see that I know there's a w at the start there. I can also hear at the end of the word a D. And we know that D makes the D sound. We know that W makes the W sound. But in the middle, there's a funny sound we haven't learnt before. D. D. So I can see in this word, and I've underlined it, the O-U-L is making the sound O. And you know what? We just have to remember that little bit. We can remember that we hear that it's the W, we can hear that it's the D, but the O-U-L is the bit we have to remember. So we put a little love heart over the top of it.
I think we've got it on
We've
there,
got a little love
but
heart.
we would draw a little red little heart over the top of that.
To remember that bit, and that means we're going to remember it by heart. And that's why we draw a little heart. And we have to remember it's O-U-L. O-U-L. Let's have a look down here. We've got the word family, so that means words that have got a similar pattern to this word would. And we can do could, and we can do should. And again, we can hear, we know it starts with a C because it's got an O after it. Remember I taught that to you last week? When we've got a C and an O, we use our C. We can hear the K, but we use a C, and we go O-U-L, and then we've got D. And then we've got our sh, which is our digraph that comes together. Sh. So sh, D, should. And there's that sound, and we know it's O-U-L, making that sound. Now we're going to practice. So we've got to practice this word 9 times. Here's my box. We're going to practice it. We're going to put it in our sentences. We're going to practice it when we bring up our heart words every day. I'm going to be adding this to our heart word pack. When you see it, you'll see would, and then I'll show you should, and then you're going to tell me could as well. We're going to write this word, and we're going to read it lots and lots and lots so we get it right in here and you can use it.
Some kids will need more than 9 practice for that, others will get it after 2, so yeah.
So you may not need to do this for every heart word because that would be really like quite a lot, but you know those ones that keep popping up, that you keep seeing, was, what, and those sorts of ones. So you could teach it as this process. We just want to show you a video here too that just sort of reiterates that
Sorry,
you
Joe.
love it. Is it right?
Cut you off there.
No, you're good.
So this is the website Really Great Reading, and they've got lists of heart words on there as well that you can use.
Examine the word would, as in my baby brother would not stop crying.
Would rhymes with words you know, like could and should. Let's see if we can figure out which parts of would we know and which parts we have to learn by heart.
Would has 3 sounds. D. The first sound, h, is spelled with the letter W. The last sound, D, is spelled with the letter D. We can read these parts using our phonics knowledge.
The middle sound, is spelled with the letters O-U-L. We use these 3 letters to spell one sound in this word. This is the one part we have to know by heart.
We might see the word would in different shapes, colors, and sizes. Would, 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 would. These all have the same letters and they all say would. Now let's see if you can remember how to spell the word would. Would. Would.
We can use our phonics knowledge to spell the first sound. The first sound is W. How do we spell W? Yes, the letter W. The last sound is D. How do we spell D? That's it, the letter D.
The middle sound, is the part we have to learn by heart. Do you remember how to spell in this word? You're right. We use the letters O-U-L. W-O-U-L-D, would.
Remembering heart words is easier when we know there is just one part to learn by heart.
Quite cute, aren't they? I think they're lovely though.
Does anybody get that thing where you look at a word more and more and it starts to look weird?
Yeah.
Like, is that spelled right?
Yeah, yeah, you do.
There
Yeah.
must be a name for that.
Yeah. So usually what we would do in the past when we were doing heart words was we'd have them on flashcards and we would be expecting children to memorise the whole word. You know, so now think about this if we're thinking about from a structured literacy perspective. We are now reducing that cognitive load because they already know that W, they know that D, and so we're just reducing it down to the little bit that they have to remember by heart.
So how many heart words would you be introducing at one time? Just one then?
Teach one at one time.
Yeah, teach one at one time.
And
But
the Little Learners has got them in there.
Yeah, so they've got them in there, and so even from the very beginning, from level stage 1 and 2, 1 word a week, or would you give them the whole lot and use them like flashcards, or
no, I'd be definitely teaching them one week.
Yeah,
and then you
'cause-
add it into like a sound pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'd be doing it.
Yeah, we find the Little Learners heart words are not a great list.
Yeah.
And there's the code. Liz Kane's got
Yeah.
some heart words as well, so it's probably for you as a school to decide which heart words you're doing at which level. And but just start, I would say, and then have that conversation. You know, what are you going to teach at which level? But Little Learners there is some heart words in there, but we just feel it's not enough.
It's we've sort of added to them definitely. Yep.
I think we've got some heart word lists in the shared drive as well.
So basically, the order that you've got them on the drive would be the order that you'd be doing them in?
Yeah, I think we've got them under year levels. I think that's how Liz Kane's got them, hasn't she?
Yeah.
How do you guys, heart words?
Well, I was just saying that we have to teach the Little Learners ones because if we're using the books, they come up in the
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
So that's our issue, but also teaching the code.
Yep.
On top of. So any gaps that that's in
Yep,
the
so
code.
you're adding them in.
we just lift them in.
Yeah.
And you also, once you get more confident with it, you'll find that you'll stop teaching certain heart words and
Yeah.
just teach them like the CK
Yeah.
roll. In stage 4 plus, they've got like 20 heart words which are like sick, peck, neck, duck, and it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna teach you that CK roll now.
Yeah, brilliant.
And you don't need to learn these
Yeah.
20 heart words.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna learn that roll.
Yeah,
next.
both done. Yeah.
And same with the plurals. Again, they've got all those heart words.
Yeah.
But just knowing what you're teaching in sequence, you're able to jump in a little bit beforehand.
Yeah.
Teach the role and save them having to learn an extra.
Yeah.
Because there are quite a few heart
Yeah,
words.
it's great.
Yeah, and we've got to remember, we've sort of had to have the chat about, well, Little Learners is actually a reading program.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of heart words in there that the children, we would teach them to read, but not necessarily write.
Yeah.
And a lot of those heart words will be picked up later when they move to year 3, in the code or otherwise, and that's when the spelling may also be a focus as well.
Great point, absolutely.
So we ensure that we teach the code heart words because the other heart words they
Yeah.
need to know
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah.
Year 3 plus.
That's fantastic explanation, thank you.
Really
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what we're going to just take 5 minutes now and get you to teach the person next to you the heart word could, and then swap over and take turns. So maybe one could do could and one could do should.
Okay, so stop there. There was just some really good questions. Can I borrow that too? The practice one there was just, do we write in it? Which I can see why you would think that. That was just to show you sort of and give you a tick, like how many times you want it to be practiced, at least 9. You know,
Every
so
time you practice it.
Every
give it a
time you
tick.
practice it, you could be ticking it off. You probably won't, let's be honest. You're not going to get the sheet out and go, yes, we've done it. But it's just to remind you and say, oh, we're going to be doing lots of practicing of this. We're going to be reading it. We're going to be seeing it. We're going to be writing this word. And even if you see it somewhere when you're out, and you could have a look and tell me if you saw that word could, and come and tell me and we can tick it off. You know, so you're really encouraging that practice more than anything. Yeah. And I forgot to, sorry, it's not written on there, but this one, the big bit up there is the bit where you would write the word first. Could. You'd show them what it is.
So on the shared drive, there's Liz Kane's step-by-step how to teach heart words. I think she does my and said, so have another little look at that if you want a step-by-step approach.
I think the big thing to remember is don't overload them with stuff that they already know. Just keep it to the bit that you have to learn the heart.
And I always forget to do heart words. It's one of the things that I just put off.
Yeah.
It's like, you teach the rule and you do all that practice, and by that time the kids are done in, and so you forget to do the heart words. So it's good to remember to do them. Anybody else got anything else they want to share about heart words?
I'd have lots of visual reminders around the room too, because think of that VAK.
I know that about the heart words work, they get cognitive load though, the younger they are.
Yes.
Like new entry versus say year 2, how much they can take.
Yep.
And sometimes they can't take an extra bit.
Correct. And that's, that's where you've been diagnostic. Yep, totally. Agree with you.
Now, we're just moving into the tiered system for intervention. Now, you've heard Joe talk about tier 2 and tier 3 and tier 1, and we thought we'd just show you what we mean by that. And it's the response to intervention model, which is the RTI model, and it's a 3-tiered approach, and it's often shown as a triangle like this. And you'll have here tier 1, which they have as 80% of all students, and all students receiving high quality classroom instruction. So your tier 1 is your classroom instruction, and students are achieving at or above their expected level. Then you're moving into tier 2, and we've got approximately 15%. And this is students receiving classroom instruction and small group. So they're getting that double whammy. Same thing that's happening in that small group is happening in the classroom. Sessions are regular and intensive with a specific time limit. That's time limit on, in terms of the daily session, not they're in for a 10-week program. Because this isn't a program, remember it's an approach, so they're in for as long as they need it. And obviously that's a discussion you have to have with your learning support, how long they get support for. Specific goals are set and students are achieving below their classmates. And then you've got that top 5% of the triangle, which are your tier 3 students. They will be your dyslexic students probably, or something else might be going on. And these students receive classroom instruction and very small group instruction. So it might be 1-to-1, or 1-to-2, or 1-to-3. So they're getting that double whammy. Instruction is explicit with multiple opportunities for repetition. I think we've just really hammered that home today about these kids need lots of repetition. Sessions are very regular and intensive, and specific goals are set. Students are achieving significantly below their peers. Now, this is the ideal world. We found that when we started doing this at Redcliffe, we had a really big at the top, and because we started introducing structured literacy as a learning support program for those kids struggling, and then we thought actually we've got a tier 1 problem going on here, and so we looked at that's when we introduced structured literacy in the classrooms across the school. So remember that is the ideal. If the classroom practice is going really well, should be your numbers of 15%, 5%.
How much time do you give a new entrant in a structured literacy approach before you start getting sort of warning bells going off that things are? How much settling in time do you give?
Well, at Redcliffe they do 3 weeks, and then they do that PA assessment, and there might be some red flags there, but again it's going to depend on funding and time, and you might have a student that might need to pop out into a group early on at that level, but you might not have the resources to be able to do that. We work in schools where they have to prioritise who gets what learning support, and so they'll prioritise the older kids. We just know that the older kids take a lot longer to remediate. They've got a lot of bad habits that you have to undo, and obviously sometimes things like dyslexia going on, and so they do take often a lot longer. So if you sort of think about it, if you got them at 5, it's quick, short, sharp, hopefully it's going to help. But some of these kids will need support right the way through.
And I'd be red flagging to any children that have got any sort of family history that you know of dyslexia. Then I'd be thinking, keeping a close eye on them. Yep.
It's hard to know that one though, isn't it?
Mm.
You
It's
don't
really
ask
hard.
it at enrolment. Are you dyslexic?
Yeah.
I've got a question. At Redcliffe now that you've got that really good tier 1 intervention, is your triangle looking like that? Or is that realistic? That is it sitting like that?
Yep, so, because I'm on the board there, so I get all the data that comes through, and we always had quite good reading results. We had sort of 80% and this 20% that we couldn't shift no matter what, which, you know, some schools would think that was amazing, you know, reading data. But we really wanted to focus on that 20%, and they really have had intensive support, haven't they?
Yeah.
And we have seen shift, but the big shift we've seen is in the writing area, and that's taken 2 or 3 years. And when we say, you know, really good classroom, it's still a work in progress at Redcliffe. We've got new teachers coming in, got some that are probably, you know, doing their own thing a little bit, going a bit wild on it, rogue. That's all good. So, you know, it's a work in progress, and our colleague Lily and Julie are actually still working in there, but more of a writing focus with them now. Yeah. So.
And I think the change of that triangle has been that we focused on the classroom practice, and so we really strengthened that, and we've done that through coaching.
And the other thing is that the teacher aides are doing the same thing as the classroom teachers, so lining that up. So that's that double whammy. So they're not going out for something different, they're doing just another review, another practice.
And I think the other thing around changing that has been that we've trained the teacher aides to be able to know exactly what they're doing as well. And the other key thing I think that we've really strengthened is the actual communication between the teacher and the teacher aide, or the classroom teacher and the tier 2 and 3 teachers. And we've been really particular about the reporting back and the assessment on those children who are in tier 2 and 3, and then that fluidity and what's happening with those children, and everybody's involved in that decision making of, we keep that child in tier 2 for another 3 weeks and then we'll check again, or this child can go back into the classroom, but we're going to be monitoring them pretty closely.
And we find the ones that are sticking in the learning support are our attendance kids who are away a lot. And they're the ones that really need it, and you know, you just get some traction and then they're away for a good length of time. So
what we found too is it's being done really early, so we're not waiting for a year to see and then see, oh, his child's struggling, let's go to a reading recovery. We're doing it way back here, and we're picking those children up a lot earlier, and we're bringing in the parents as well. And I think in the tier 2 and 3 setting, that's made a huge difference, because we're coming and the parents come in, watch a lesson, they see what they could be doing at home, and I think that's making a big difference as well.
we went to I'm not sure if we talked about it last time, because it was the day before. We went to Wellington to listen to some literacy experts. We had Professor James Chapman from Massey University, who's amazing, and he spoke about reading recovery and the failure of it. Basically, he didn't really mince his words, and he said it's 40% of kids fail in reading recovery, and that, you know, there's been that big study in America that's just come out with looking at them 2 to 3 years down the track, so they might, you know, look like they're doing well, you know, once they exit out of the program, but then 2 to 3 years down the track, they're not achieving it where they expected to. And he said there's something like $30-something million a year, taxpayer dollars, goes into reading recovery. So we've been working with the ministry to try and get schools to be able to use their reading recovery funding in a structured literacy way. Currently, if you're not, you don't get the funding. So, you know, it's pretty hard to give up that funding in schools. So we're trying to just get at least schools can choose to use that funding in a structured literacy way instead of reading recovery. I mean, I'm reading recovery trained, so yeah.
I'm just wondering, what do you do with children, your imports, your children that are coming in partway through the year that may have had nothing to do with no structured literacy in the past? Where do they fit in the scheme? Because they can't just necessarily slot into what year 3s are doing.
That's definitely a hard one. There's not an easy answer to that one. Often those children will maybe pop into tier 2 and we'll work out where they're sitting and why have they come, you know, what have they come with, so we would assess them. And so we'd work out, okay, they are really low, so we need to keep them in tier 2 and 3. Or it might be they'll begin in classroom practice, they go out into tier 2, get a little bit of get used to what the structure is. It might be they just haven't heard the vocabulary, haven't got maybe the base they need. So they would get that from tier 2, and then we would go, they're okay now, they can just go back into the classroom, they'll be right. Yeah.
It is a tricky one because we're getting people that are moving into zone and renting a house to come to Redcliffe's for our structural literacy. So, that's tricky because then you've got kids who have been there since 5 and needing support, and you've got all these decisions on how you use, your funding, and it all comes down to funding at the end of the day, doesn't it? And how many hours you can have, but definitely having everybody trained in the same approach just makes a lot of sense.
A really nice thing too about having that tier 2 and tier 3 setting is that often those children who go into those tier 2, 3 groups, they're the kids that are always struggling. And what we try to do with those children too is preload them. So the teacher will say, next week I'm going to be teaching TCH, can you please preload them with that? So they'll tell the children, next week in class you're going to be doing this, and this is what this is. When the children come into the class and the teacher starts to teach it, they are already a little bit ahead. At least they've heard what TCH is, they know the sounds, and you'll often find those wee kiddies start putting their hands up because they start to feel like the experts, which is a really nice thing to see for them, because thinking self-esteem and stuff like that as well.
It's funny, Joe, when you say preload, I always get a picture of you with vodka cruiser on a Friday night. Okay, anything else about that? Yeah. We just thought we'd give you a bit of an overview of that. We've talked about it a bit and how it all fits. Okay, we're going to move into orthographic mapping now. Hands up if you've heard of this concept. Great. This is showing you all the components of learning to read fluently, so all the things that you need to go into being able to read the words so that they just pop off the page. And so orthographic mapping is that process that competent readers use to store written words so that they're able to automatically recall them. So they just pop off the page automatically. You can't not read something. So here we've got all the components, the phonemic awareness, your letter sound knowledge, your word analysis skills. They come into your reading and writing, and then you are orthographically mapping that in your brain, and that now becomes part of your sight word vocab or your lexicon. It's like, you think of a lexicon as like the pantry of words that you've got stored, and you've probably got a few agricultural words in your lexicon out here compared to what we might have. So everyone's got a different lexicon.
And then in your decoding and encoding, here there's lots of conscious effort. And when you've orthographically mapped those sounds onto the letter strings, and you can just pop that word off the page, it moves into what's called your sight word vocabulary. So there's no effort required.
Okay, so once we know how to read, we read fast, recognising a word in a fraction of a second. Reading is automatic. You can't stop yourself from reading words that you see. So we're going to get you to do a little activity here. Try to quickly say the colour of the font of each word. You can all say it out loud. Red, orange, green. What happened? So this is called the Stroop effect. It's a classic demonstration of how our brains automatically process written words. Did you hesitate on the words in the second set? Yeah, that was a lot harder, wasn't it? Maybe you blurted out purple here instead of green because you just can't not read it. So we see that the reading is automatic and that overrides your colour recognition. So we talk about the process we use to orthographically map words. And this concept was first described by Lanier Erie, who explains it as creating links that glue spelling to the pronunciation of words. To create these links, we need to be very good at two things. One, breaking spoken words into sounds, so that's your phonemic awareness. So you can see why that's so important now, how we keep hammering on about the phonemic awareness and knowing which sounds can be represented by which letters, so that letter sound knowledge. So here a child encounters the word fish and attends to the, that's probably saying it in a very Kiwi accent now, fish, and attends to the sounds and the letters in the entire word. This child has good phonemic awareness. She knows that there are individual sounds in the spoken word, and so is able to create strong links between the sounds and the letters. When the child is good at orthographic mapping, they begin self-teaching new words and are well on their way to becoming a great reader. And so that's where those kids, that 5% of kids that we don't know how they learnt to read, they've just taught themselves. So the more you know, it's that Matthew effect, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The more you read, the more you're helping to do this. You're actually self-teaching words. Right, I'm just going to show you.
Orthographic mapping. How do children
Sorry, I just jumped on automatically. We're just going to show you a little video here of Lynn Stone, who did the 4-step process before as well. She's a linguist in Melbourne, and she works with struggling readers and writers, has a clinic set up in Melbourne with tutors, and she also works in schools as well. And this is just her talking about the process.
become fluent readers and writers? Well, it starts with a sight word vocabulary. This doesn't mean, though, that they should be given a set of sight words to memorize. That's inefficient, and it doesn't help them spell those words later. Instead, they build up a store of words they can recognize effortlessly without sounding them out and without looking elsewhere for cues. In fact, once they have a word in their sight word vocabulary, they can't suppress its sound and possible meanings when they come to that word again. So saying that children shouldn't learn whole words for memorization sounds counterintuitive. And in fact, I have to apologize when I ask teachers not to do this, because many of them spend hours and years even sending home sight words for memorization with the best intentions. But please don't shoot the messenger. A popular thought is that input and output should be equal. So we speak in whole words, why not input whole words? I'm afraid that doesn't work. Let's break it down and put it into perspective. As a literate adult, how many words and word parts do you think you might instantly recognise? Kilpatrick puts it as somewhere between 30 and 70,000. Now my question to you is, did you consciously memorise each one as a whole? Or did you store them in a different way? It would be impossible to consciously memorise this many words. What you actually did was use a process called orthographic mapping. Let's break it down. Ortho means correct or straight, such as in orthodontist or orthopedic. Graph, that which is written. And mapping, matching one representation to another. This diagram is intended to show the relationship between orthography, the spelling of something, M-A-P-P-I-N-G, and how that maps onto phonology, M-A-P-I-N, and then how that's stored in the lexicon, mapping. Here's the process. What you do is you look at the sequence of the letters in a word, then you translate them into possible phonemes when you're reading. You blend those phonemes to form words, and then through exposure, those sequences become unitized, leading to instant recognition. Some estimates put it at 1 to 4 exposures for typically developing readers. This in turn facilitates recall when writing. But the big question is, how come some children do learn sight words using flashcards? Well, because it's possible. It's possible to memorize whole words as wholes without sounding them out. But it's not possible to memorize all the words like that. If you want to be efficient and you want to reach as many children as possible, teach them to sound words out. This will help them learn new words, and it will also help them to spell words. At this point, we should talk about Linnea Airy. Most of her research looked at the way that children moved from learning to recognize words to self-teaching, and she came up with the term orthographic mapping to describe this phenomenon. Here are her key findings. Firstly, children who have good knowledge of grapheme-phoneme correspondences can retain words in their long-term memory with more efficiency than those who don't. Therefore, it's logical to teach these systematically from school entry. Another of her findings was that underpinning this proficiency is phonemic awareness. That's the ability to perceive the sameness, number, order, and difference of sounds in the speech stream. Therefore, assessing and intervening from school entry helps everybody. And thanks to David Kilpatrick's work, it's not hard. Next, Airy found that the crucial part of the kind of memorization we're talking about is attention to the sequence of letters in a word. Therefore, instruction that interferes with sequential observation, like whole words or the psycholinguistic guessing game, interferes with permanent storage. Airy's research also showed that this builds cumulatively and eventually results in seemingly effortless decoding of familiar and, more importantly, unfamiliar or irregular words. This is where Scher's self-teaching hypothesis comes in, and as Alison Clark from Spelfabet said, things tie together when you have a really good theory. Let's look at Scher's self-teaching hypothesis. In my practice, when children have had enough exposure to the alphabetic code, enough practice in blending and segmenting words and putting them together, they start to read. At first, this can be slow and laboured, but as they get more practice, they get more proficient. And that's what I call the sweet zone, when they start to teach themselves. Scher's self-teaching hypothesis proposes that phonological recoding functions as a self-teaching mechanism, enabling the learner to independently acquire an autonomous orthographic lexicon. Let's look at that a bit closer. Phonological recoding is the ability to read from left to right unfamiliar words. It's the ability to generate sounds for the letters and letter combinations, and it's the ability to blend sounds into recognizable words. So without direct instruction in every word, those whose phonological and orthographic foundations are strong enough use those foundations to self-teach. And before you know it, you're at 30,000 plus words by the time you're all grown up. That's what Scher means by building your autonomous orthographic lexicon. I see this poster, or a version of this poster, on school walls everywhere. My students get sent home with these pictures and prompts on laminated pieces of card. Some prompts are more useful than others, but what I'd like you to do is take a minute and ask yourselves, which prompts are likely to facilitate orthographic mapping? Which prompts aren't? And then the big question is, why teach with prompts that don't facilitate orthographic mapping? We're going to play Look Away Bingo. Firstly, let's take a look at Eagle Eye. It says, look at the picture. Think, what is in the picture that starts with the beginning letter? Does that facilitate orthographic mapping? Is that asking the student to look at the sequence of the letters? No. How about Lips the fish? Get your mouth ready, say the beginning sound. Well, that's all fine, but what about the other sounds? Stretchy snake. Slowly stretch each letter sound to make the word. Looks like we actually have something that might be useful. Let's move on to Chunky Monkey. Chunky Monkey. Break the word into chunks you already know. M-at, f-l-at, sp-l-at, The implication here is that somehow the word at has something to do with the other words. That's some pretty dangerous morphology there. Not recommended. Try and lion. Try to reread the sentence. Think, what makes sense? In terms of Look Away Bingo, that's another prompt to look away from the word. Skippy Frog. Skip the tricky word. Read to the end, go back and try it again. Look away again. Flippy Dolphin. Flip the vowel sound. Try the long and short sounds. Not bad, but in the absence of a rationale as to why you would do that, doesn't seem to make sense. That last bit, always makes sense, sound right, look right, I've got a special counter for. I've no idea what that's supposed to mean. So out of all these strategies, only 2 have anything to do with the phonology and the orthography of the word. Everything else is asking the student to look away from the word. If you want to be effective, and more importantly, if you want your students to be proficient readers, get them to keep their eyes on the word and go through the whole word.
No.
She has a decoding dragon, which you can find on her website if you're looking for a little image, and it gives you some little tips on how to decode.
Any thoughts on that video?
We've all done it, we've all said those prompts to kids. Just that's what Lynn had in her video there, but when she talked about 1 to 4 exposures, but for dyslexic learners or kids with cognitive difficulties, it might be up to 1,500 times that they need to see the word, practice the word.
And that's where that review, always building in that review to your lesson plan, lesson guidance is so important.
I think we might just stop for 2 minutes and have a stretch and some looking like some glazed eyes. Grab some fresh air or a quick drink of water, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes.
You're doing
Okay, we might just kick into our next bit.
Okay, we'll look at reporting. Not going to go into a lot of detail about this because a lot of this may not apply to you because it's maybe done more by the SENCO or somebody like that. But just so you can sort of see what we did a little bit. We did reporting to parents at Redcliffs. So we matched our little learners and the colour wheel levels as best we could. Bearing in mind it's hard because you're comparing apples with pears, but the teachers needed it, and that's fair because we were so used to one way and then we were trying to do a new way, so we thought let's just do that. So, but bear in mind it's a rough guide, okay? And then we did slightly broader bands to cover the discrepancy between the two different approaches, so it just allowed us that little bit of leeway. We let parents know we initially needed to backfill, and it may look like they haven't moved due to gap filling. So we were really clear about that with the parents. Sorry, we sent out a note to them and we explained that to them when we ran a parent workshop as well. It may look like your child's just stagnating, but bear in mind we've now, through structured literacy and our assessments, we've found some gaps. We know we have to go back and fill those before we can move forward, so don't be alarmed, we're on it, we know what's happening. Yeah. We use Hero as our student management system, so we used sliders. We're not a goals based, we're just sliders, and we use OTJ. So some schools may be goals based, and I'll do a wee plug here. So next term, if you're a Hero school, this might be of interest. Natasha and Bridget are going to be running a session of showing you what they did at their school. It's online, and you can join that, and they'll give you a really good rundown of how they went about changing their goals and what that process was, if you wanted to know. We changed our system. Oh, that's Link Ed when it changed to Hero. We waited till it changed to Hero so we didn't have 2 changes to do. So this is just an example to give you a wee idea of what we did to start with. So we married up our little learners in our stage. So you can see here we've got orange, so they're our orange, and that linked up with little learners stage 7.1 to 7.2. And we just said not yet at expectation, at expectation and above.
We've now got rid of that orange, so they've moved away from having the colours on there as well, but as Jo said, it was a bit of a safety blanket for teachers to begin with.
So is it just blank, or you just have the
little learners?
Now we just we don't have the colour wheel orange. We just have now what level the children are at. And this is some examples of now that you're reporting through structured literacy, what are you going to report on? And again, teachers found this quite difficult because it's well, this is so new, what do we do? So we just came up with some sort of phrasing and some things that we could think about, that we're going to be actually reporting on. And if you think about it, we're reporting on their phonemic awareness, how are they sitting with that? We're reporting on their letter sound knowledge, where are they sitting with that? and we're also reporting on how are they picking up all those generalisations and rules that we're teaching. Are they able to apply it in their writing? So we, things like making fantastic progress in learning to read. She has great phonological awareness skills, which contributes to her success in reading. She's able to delete and change sounds and words to create new words. She's segmenting and blending, using those lovely strategies when reading, and she's starting to do that a little bit more in her head, so we can see it starting to be a little bit more advanced, not having to do and decode every word. It's now becoming a lot more fluent and doing it a bit more abstractly. She's doing it in her head. Eliza is beginning to learn new sound patterns, and we've just listed what they are, and this will unlock more material for her. And then we just talk about those new steps, new learning steps. So we're going to get her to slow down, still doing a little bit of guessing. So you're still talking about all that lovely, when you were doing like a, not your running record, but your record for reading, you're looking at those lovely reading behaviours that you saw. Great. Eliza's doing really well now. When she comes to a word, she's able, I don't need to prompt her any longer. She just knows to look through it and work it out.
Oh, well, we provided teachers with banks of phrases that they could pull from as well to begin with, and I'm sure that's probably evolved.
Absolutely.
It was sort of when we first started.
Yeah. So this is just an idea of what we did with our little learners and comparing them to and aligning them with their PMs. So we've said after 6 months, you'd be hoping they'd be sitting at about yellow, which is stage 4. After 1 year, it's about green, stage 6. And after after 2 years, we'd be expecting them to be sitting at 7.4, 7.5 of the little learners, and then you would move on to using the code. And that's where it would turn into more of a spelling focus. And bear in mind, this is just a wee guide. It's not set in stone. Any questions about reporting? That was just a very quick overview.
Does that make sense? Yeah, quite useful that, wasn't it, that visual? Did you want to do goal setting or yes.
So we're nearly done. We're nearly done. We're doing so well. This is a lot of information. Yes.
The report writing bank.
Yes. Is the report writing bank on the drive?
No.
No, I don't think it will be, but I could add some to it, definitely, of what you write. Yep, definitely. With the teachers at Redcliffe, pretty much what I said to them, if you think about what you're writing about, or what you're going to write in your report, you really want to write about where are they sitting with their PA, where are they sitting with their letter sound knowledge, and then basically how are they with their rules or their generalisations. Yep.
Would you look at it as a literacy comment or as a reading in the writing?
I'd probably do it as a literacy comment because we're now putting it all together. And I'd be saying things like, I can really see in their writing now that they're applying the rules. Here it's reading through. I've split them up. I think now they're doing it for literacy because you want it to see as a whole. Alice letter sound knowledge. Yep. Oh, sorry. So your PA knowledge, letter sound, and then your knowledge of the rules and the conventions. Yep. Okay, we've handed out to you now a gold sheet. So we've given you a whole heap of information over these 2 days. And remember, this was just an introduction to structured literacy, so we haven't gone too deep into some bits. We've given you a bit of a feel and a bit of a flavour. I know some people might be going, well, this is a lot to take in. Remember, you've got your notes to take away. You can get in touch with us anytime just to check in with anything. I think what's a really good idea is to think about this as a long journey. This is not something you can put into place all at once. We want this to be sustainable and we want it to work. And I think one way to do that is to just think about some goals that you're going to be putting into place, and it might be just you as a school, or it might be as your team, or you just as yourself. And this is where we're going to give you some time to think about that. This is where we've got a SMART goal. We just want you to write down 3 things you could do to help embed structured literacy into your setting. Identify your next steps, maybe share with your group or the person next to you what support you'll need, what resources you think you might need to get ready, and identify systems that may need to change. So maybe we need to take out this assessment now because it's not serving us anymore and we need to replace it with this. Yeah. So it's just getting you to start thinking about some of the things you can start putting into place, and again, remember, just do it as maybe it might be one thing you're thinking about. So for example, at Redcliffe, the first term, all we decided to do was we were going to look at how to do phonemic awareness, and that was our first goal for the term. That was looking at making ourselves familiar with what assessments were available, and then how we could assess children, and then how we would put that data into a array. Yeah. So don't go big, and we'll come round and help you out and have a chat and discussion as well. Everybody happy? There was just a few questions that came out of the discussions there, so really nice to have some discussions and really good steps people are thinking of. One thing I just recommend is keep your steps, keep them small, keep them manageable. Don't try and do too much all at once. You know, it might be, again, you might just be doing PA this term, that's your only focus. So don't try and do too much at once. Some people have been asking what happens then with writing. What's the writing? So if you think about with structured literacy, if you're doing a literacy group and you're doing your dictated sentences and you're teaching spelling, then that is an element of writing. But you are also on top of that going to just carry on with your writing program. That's not replacing it, but it's certainly helping it. And then I think once you get the reading side of the structured literacy sorted out, then there is structured literacy for writing as well. But I wouldn't go anywhere near there until you get this side of it sort of sorted out first. Yeah. And so keep on doing what you're doing with your writing. And then as you start to feel more comfortable, and then there'll be you know, more workshops coming out about writing as well, and how to teach that in a structured literacy way. And next steps, so our workshop 2, we've got on the 31st of August and the 28th of September. So think, is that right, Natasha?
Yes, that information's gone out to the principals and literacy leads, so that should trickle through to you too.
Yeah. We're just going to do it again 9 to 1 because we find that eyes start glazing over after 1 o'clock. This is a bit dry, the neck stuff. We just have to teach it to you. So,
Try but exciting.
We do try to make it as exciting as it can be. You've got, I don't remember that. The decodables, just only use the decodables at stage 6.
Just one more thing that was brought up, that was when using decodables, and when you can start to use other texts, and that's we said at Redcliffe, so we said about stage 6. Personally, I would go till a little bit later in the scope and sequence before then, but that's what we sort of came to as a conclusion, that stage 6 they had enough of the knowledge, and where you could start to introduce PMs and that sort of thing as well. My only concern with that is that they start to revert back to ineffective strategies, so just be very wary of that. I think if the children were able, then yes, I would be getting them to have a mixture of decodables. If they were less able and needed support, I'd be sticking to more 7.2, 7.3.
And it's going to come down to resources in your school and what budgets you have, and if the principal is looking for something to spend money on, decodable books is, you really do need them in a school to do structured literacy. So
yes. So one wee last thing we'd love you to do, and this might be part of what your goal setting was going to be anyway, but have a look at the LLL assessments and the UK Phonics assessment on the shared drive, and choose a student to assess. You may have already done this, so you won't need to, and then just get a real feel for how you administer them. Collect the data and become familiar with how to record that data, as in the heat mapping, and then think about and share with a colleague what you do to support this child. What is that data actually showing me? Have they got weak letter sound knowledge with the vowels? Do I need to reteach it? So share with the person who you're working with. Thank you, and we've got an electronic feedback form that we'll send through to you. Please be really honest. We really appreciate feedback, and we tweak and change as we go along, so we'd really like to hear that. And go well. Thank you.
Thank you.